everyone. Today is Thursday, and every Thursday we invite an ambassador of sustainability to talk with us. We have someone very interesting with us today who is from Pune, Maharashtra. But let me first play this video for you.
Now what today I'm going to show you is what kind of plastic do we accept and what do we make from it. So all of you know, most of you know the products that we make. Here are some interesting products that we have. Okay, so totes, book covers, these are laptop sleeves made up of different kinds of plastic waste, made from waste plastic bags, white and black plastic bags, made from different kinds of wrappers. So our bags and products are of different types and varieties, and you can obviously see them online on our website. So now what kind of waste do we accept? Now this is a bag full of plastic waste which some of our really hardcore supporters, Madhura and Ashish, keep collecting these for us and they have given us. So let's see what all they have. Okay, so these are wrappers. This is a tea packet wrapper. This is a khadi wrapper. There are some transparent plastic bags. There are some wafer packets. Also, these kind of plastic bags, small and big sized plastic bags, which are ideally not used anymore. They're banned, but if they are still available, you can give it to us. Another very interesting thing that we use are these gift wrappers. So we call them paper, but that's not paper, it is plastic. Okay, so we should obviously initially start reducing our consumption as much as possible. If we can't, then you can upcycle it. So this bag is actually made of wrappers like this. This laptop sleeve is actually made of packets like this. So these are all interesting products that we are making from all this here. Now, and one more interesting things that we make use of are these cassette tapes. Video and audio cassette tapes, which are no longer being used, but we still use them. We use the tapes from these cassette tapes to weave the products that we make. Now, how would you keep collecting waste in your own house? Okay, so these are certain things which usually come in packets. So whenever you go shopping, unfortunately, a lot of the things are packaged in plastic. As much as possible, I avoid buying things packaged in plastic, but wherever I can't, I have to go for them. Now, what I do is, so suppose I take this chana packet, okay? When I come home, I just cut it only from the top, okay? So I cut it only from the top, as much as I need, and then I can use it, pour it from here. Once I'm done, I'll wash the plastic bag and dry it and store it separately. And once in a month or once in 6 months, whenever you have enough of plastic waste, you can ship it to us. Our address is given on our website, so please go ahead with that. Another thing that I wanted to tell you is also, currently we are not accepting very small wrappers. We will be using some, we are doing some R&D which we will be using it for, but currently we are not accepting really tiny plastic wrappers like the chocolate ones. And please don't tear plastic bags like this. Please don't tear the wrappers like this, because once it's torn, we can't use it. Don't send us any milk wrappers because their smell doesn't go. Oil wrappers, smell doesn't go. So whatever is greasy, oily, don't send us because its smell doesn't go, and then the product starts smelling of that. So yeah, this is how you could help us by collecting some plastic waste and donating us whenever possible. But remember, the main 4 things that we want you to remember is the 4 R's. So before recycling or upcycling, remember, refuse, reduce, reuse, and then finally recycle or upcycle. So the first 3 R's are utmost important. We are not going to upcycle or recycle waste which can be ideally reduced or avoided. Thank you so much, and wish us good luck. Thanks.
Right, it was a lovely video, and I'm sure it set the mood of uh, today's webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Amita Deshpande to today's webinar. And I'm going to introduce Amita today. Amita Deshpande has worked extensively in sustainable development and corporate social responsibility since the past 14 years. An IT engineer by basic education, she went on to do her master's in Purdue University. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, USA, with a focus on sustainability. She worked with CSR teams of multinational corporation consultancies, nonprofits, and community-based organizations in the USA and India, and eventually founded Arohana Eco-Social Developments with the rich experience she gathered. After leading Arohana for 7 years, she founded Recharkha Eco-Social to continue the same work of upcycling waste plastic. Recharkha Eco-Social is a social enterprise working on upcycling non-recyclable plastic waste using a traditional weaving technique that uses a charkha and handloom. Recharkha employs tribal and rural women and youth in this process, thus enabling livelihoods for them in an attempt to develop an eco-social planet. Welcome, Amita, to today's webinar.
Thank you so much, Kuntil. Thanks for giving the opportunity.
Right. My first question to you, actually, there are two questions in one. You did your master's in the USA with a focus on sustainability. Very curious. What did it teach you, and what were your learnings during your master's?
Sure. So when I decided to take a course in sustainability, of course, US is not the best country to do a sustainability course, but because I was based there, it was easier for me to do that. Not many universities offer degree in sustainable development or this kind of work at that time. So the best university which I got admitted into was the Purdue University and its management college, the Krannert School of Management. So I took up a course which was a business course. So it was a management degree. But purposely I took up, because there were no specific courses on sustainability, I took electives in my final semester, which were totally directed to sustainability. And sustainability in that time, what the course that I did primarily was focused on CSR and sustainable development that corporates can do for because everything is impacted by business. If
Right.
your business is sustainable, the development is sustainable, because livelihoods, development, consumerism, everything is driven by business. So the focus was on that, and we did a lot of thankfully our management courses are always in the ones that I took up were all case study based. So we did a lot of case studies on various companies who took sustainability as the core of their development. You know, a company called Interface Carpets, for example. The CEO of Interface Carpets himself is a sustainability champion. And so his company is totally based on sustainable development. That's how I think that's what my course was all about, to study these kind of companies and then take notes from it and how that can be implemented in other places.
Right. And what about your learnings? I mean,
yeah,
out there.
So the main learning I really feel is that sustainability has to be woven into business. It can't be a separate entity in itself. Definitely not. So the main learning or the take home for me was that it is no longer bottom line, but it is the triple bottom line which matters. So your bottom line, which is your profit margin, has to be hand in hand with your environmental impact and your social impact.
Very interesting. My second question, I mean, that's the second part of the first question. As the world looks to reinvent in the coming days, months, and years, it is clear that sustainability will not only be at the heart of the COVID-19 recovery process, but it will also cease to be associated with environment alone. Sustainability will have a much broader implication that will encompass social, cultural, and economic aspects.
Right.
Do you think our education system in India should embrace sustainability in a deeper way now? That it could be a career option and not just activism, as most parents probably sees it today.
Yes.
And parents should actively encourage the children to go for it. Should they opt for it?
Totally. And the pandemic has taught us that, as well as it has been, it has been everywhere in the world, in the news and in everybody's readings that sustainability has to be taken up as the the main line, not just a sideline, but a main line. And so even in my own journey, when I started my career journey, sustainability was never a topic that was possible for me to take as a career. That's why I took up IT in the initial years and then moved to sustainability. But yes, there is a huge potential. So even until the government or the syllabus starts moving towards that direction, because that takes a lot of time, all of us know that, the industries can drive it. So the industries can start internship programs driven towards this, which will automatically drive the career, because everything is driven by career. So if the company has a job in sustainability, it becomes a big career opportunity. So I think fortunately it's going to be driven by industry.
You're
So the
right.
education will follow. That's how it has been, right? Even IT, when IT became a big boom, originally all the electronics engineers and mechanical engineers were actually doing the coding. But then IT, as a stream of engineering, began to come up, or computers started to come up. But that's how it has to be with sustainability. The industry should drive the education, and automatically a lot of people will join. And thankfully there's a lot of social media is already doing a lot of awareness in that. Social entrepreneurship in itself has become a big topic, which people are exploring, even if they want to start their own ventures, or if they want to hire jobs all over the place, sustainability jobs, social jobs all over the place. So it will drive.
I would imagine there would be a sustainability champion in every company very soon.
Yes.
2021, that would be, there would be someone uh, driving it. You have worked with CSR teams of multinational corporation, consultancies, non-profits, and community-based organizations in the USA. Tell us more about it.
When I started working with these companies, I was a consultant for sustainability reporting for, say, Starbucks. So Starbucks was a very important client to me, and it was a favorite client too. And there are others such as Mattel and the World Bank and a lot of such clients. So that time, sustainability was more of a reporting framework, that you have to report your CSR and sustainability, and then the were obviously driven through the processes inside the company. And that helped me dive deeper and deeper into how the processes were. So just given an example of Starbucks, they, at that time, I think they had some 40,000 company owned stores, of course more franchisees. But if every company owned store took waste management seriously, this impact is so huge. So that was what really drove my work there, is to understand the business. And the report is one, of course, that is going to be going to the investors and to the media and everything. But how processes have to be set up so that that report comes out properly was the main motive of my work. And we were supporting that data collection and the reporting process, so that really helped. And a company like Starbucks took some very good decisions at that point in time, that they shifted biodegradable mugs and recyclable mugs. They also started procuring coffee from ethical coffee providers, so that people don't chop down rainforest and grow coffee trees over there. So that is what sustainability is all about. It is not just environment, it is society, it is the sustainability, it's the ethical sourcing, whether the farmers from where coffee is coming from, are their children being used as wage, are they doing child labor, all these kind of aspects.
Yeah,
So my experience there actually got very streamlined to understand what companies are doing and
right.
what different areas companies should work when they are looking at sustainability as a whole. So that's why I'm giving an example of Starbucks, and because everybody knows Starbucks, but there were
Right.
many other companies who were working in this field, and it was a very 10 years ago, right? So that time, in the US also, sustainability was very new. Europe was a little bit ahead, but US had just started. and the Sustainable Development Goals had just come out at that time.
And when was this? Because we kind of missed you,
Yeah,
missed it.
yeah,
Was
yeah.
this, yeah,
In 2010, this was in
2010?
2010 to 2012.
Yeah.
That's when I was working in the companies there, and then I think that was the main, the main work that I did in
Right.
the
And
US.
you also worked in India on how was it different from the US working in India?
Again, India was going towards that direction. India has been doing a lot of social work, a lot of philanthropic work, and it was always there in our genes, right from ancient times. Like Tatas have been doing and following social goals in all their development, right? And all the industries, and there are philanthropists who are doing a lot of social work. So this is definitely different from what I saw in the US. But and India does need a lot of social work. US social work definition is totally different than what it is here. What lacked in India, from my perspective, was the marriage of environment and society. So there was a lot about social development, but what was happening to the environment was never taken into consideration. So when I came back from the US, that is what I learned, that there are, for example, RO systems being set up in villages for water purification, but for people's health. On the contrary, what is happening to the wastewater that gets out of the RO? That is going and spoiling the groundwater, or that's going and spoiling the
Yeah.
agricultural fields. So,
Yeah.
that holistic view was missing somewhere. So, though I worked as a consultant, I really found that this was needed. The holistic perspective was missing. And as a consultant, I worked towards trying to meet that. It is a long process. It's still, I
Right.
don't think that is still being fixed, but we need a lot of more consultants and more people in the industry who think from a holistic perspective, and not just पानी शुद्ध देना है but उसके बाद क्या.
Right. Uh, with all the experiences gathered, you
Hmm.
founded Arohana Ecosocial Developments. Uh, what was Arohana Social Developments all about that you led for 7 years? Can you
Yeah,
tell us more?
sure. So Arohana and Recharkha are the same. Okay, for
Right.
me it's the same because the work is exactly the same. Initial 2 years of Arohana, we ran a consultancy where we were exactly doing this, working with corporates and consulting them on what kind of projects they should take. And when we started doing this, we realized that there are a few focus areas which lacked work on the grassroots. One was waste management. So this was way back in 2013, when waste management hadn't become such a strong drive like it is right now. That was one, and especially plastic waste. There is paper gets recycled, glass gets recycled, PET bottles get recycled, but this kind of plastic which I was showing in the video earlier, that plastic doesn't get recycled. So it's all these wrappers. So whenever you go, you're traveling around, or you're in a city, you see this everywhere. Even in your dustbin, 70% of your dustbin is going to be all this wrappers, plastic bags, all kinds of things. So we wanted to focus on that aspect. The second aspect, which we thought was very important and which was missing in our consulting days, we found this out, was livelihoods. And the fact that livelihoods are centered very much in the urban areas and not in rural areas is driving migration from villages to the city, and then the cities get overburdened and infrastructure doesn't support that population. All of us know this story, right? We read it in newspapers every day. So somewhere bringing those livelihoods, rural livelihoods and waste management together, and that's what we started. And I have a little video actually to show what we do as a part of what we did in Arohana and now in Recharkha, and how we have used this, all these wrappers to make products like this, or something like a nice bag like this. So it's all made of these wrappers.
Right.
So
You
do
can
you
go
think,
ahead and play the
should
video
I?
if you have it. Yeah, why
I
not?
do, yeah. It's
You
just
can
a,
just the share button and then that's it.
yeah, it's just a
Just
one
don't
minute
yeah,
video.
don't forget to share the sound of your uh,
Hmm.
computer.
I think it does take it. I've done this before. Let's see if it works. But anyways, it's more of music. There's no language. So,
Right.
and there are subtitles. So it's a 1 minute video
Right.
to see how we turn this into this.
Can you guess how this turns into this? Let's find out.
So isn't it just amazing how these
Yeah.
products can be made? Look at this. Can you even imagine that this can be made from waste? So that's what
It
our
looks
work is.
it's brilliant actually.
And
It's
just
really yeah.
humble charkha and a humble scissor. So the three machines that we use
Yeah.
to make the fabric, one is a scissor, which is a
Yeah.
machine, by the way. We all
Yeah.
forget that. The second is a charkha.
Yeah.
The charkha is like this, and
Yeah.
a handloom. That's all. And a handloom is totally sustainable in the sense that we don't need electricity. It's driven by just a pair of hands and a pair of legs.
Right.
So
Brilliant. Brilliant.
that's the fun part of our work.
Brilliant. Um, you know, Recharka Eco-Social happened after you drove Arohana Eco-Social development for 7 years.
Yes.
What was the reason behind you establishing Recharka Eco-Social when you could have continued your work with Arohana Eco-Social developments?
Yeah. So there were certain in like during the pandemic we of losses, and we had to a little bit, not all, but we weren't able to lay off our artisans, but we had to cut down the team a little bit from the administration point of view. And after the lockdown opened up, our leadership team split, and I continued to take the same operations, 80
Okay.
90% of the same operations under the new company. So that was the whole idea of changing. And anyways, I was since last year itself I was thinking of rebranding and not calling it Arohana anymore, because Arohana was initially a consultancy. So it
Right.
was, the name did not matter so much. But now that we are making a product which is a brand which is going to go into the market, people can relate to more a name such as Recharkha. So Recharkha is using our humble charkha, which led to
Yeah.
Swadesi movement, right?
Yeah, that's what my next question is, because the
Okay.
name Recharkha is very interesting, and it's inspired by the traditional charkha, which is a very powerful symbol because it represents Swadeshi,
Yeah.
self-sufficiency, and at the same time interdependence, because the wheel is at the center of a network of cotton growers, carders, weavers, distributors, and the end user.
Yeah.
Tell us the story and spirit behind the name Recharkha, because that's a very
Sure.
catchy name and it's a beautiful name.
Thank you so much. So when we started thinking about the new name, we wanted it to encompass everything. The environment, the way plant, the whole aspect of recycling or upcycling that we do, the handicraft aspect in it, which where we are using a charkha. Also, the circular economy which we are trying to drive, we wanted to have all those things together, and the aspect of women empowerment, because
Right.
it's 80% of our team is women, and the artisans are women. We are working towards women livelihoods. So to bring everything together, we brainstormed so many names, and how Recharkha came into existence is one of my co-founder in the NGO. So I also have an NGO called My Eco Social Planet. So my co-founder in the NGO, we were discussing, and he thought about, what if we have Charkha in the name somewhere? And then we started brainstorming around Charkha, and then we thought that Re is something which is, in everybody's mind and all over the world. Re is a known word that means something related to recycling or
Right.
rejuvenation, or you know refurbishing, that kind of a thing. And Charkha is what we wanted to do, so it actually becomes recycle if you look at the actual definition of it. And
Right.
then it drives everything, or the whole definition of what I wanted to have in Arohana automatically became Recharkha. So we just rebranded it.
How nice. I love the name Recharkha because
Thank you.
it's so rooted. It's like, it's always very earthy feel to it.
Yeah.
Uh, um, just tell me something. When there is always a challenge when
Mhm.
you try to do something out of the box. Um, how hard was it for you to get the right people on board to create a product as unique as yours? I mean, that's question number one. And then question number two would be, what was the reaction of the people when you say that I want to make beautiful products out of plastic waste which looks ugly, and not just people who you would pitch the product to, but also people who you have engaged in the process. So can you tell us more? There are three questions in one, I'm sure, but I can repeat if you want.
Maybe break them down into
Yeah,
three
break them
ones
down.
so that
Okay.
I'll be more structured. Otherwise, I'll go
Yeah,
all around the
yeah. I
place.
mean, what were your challenges when it came to getting the right people on board? Were there any challenges, or people just kind of
Hmm.
uh, jumped into it?
No, it's very difficult actually to start something like this, and especially when you're, earning a comfortable salary, and especially when you're earning in dollars, and now you're going to be totally going to zero salary. So it's difficult. But thankfully, at that time, I found, our leadership team at that time was very, very different and very driven. And we got together. We did a lot of research, a lot of traveling, forget about our families. Family did not exist. It was just the team. And my husband was with me since the beginning. Of course, he was not a part of Arohana. He's now a part of Recharkha. But he was always with me throughout the process. My parents were a part of the process. Everybody was a part of the process. But what happens is, when you're initially starting something, you need all this support. And in a way, my family was my team. My sister started with us as an intern. She helped us with design, and dad helped us with business knowledge because he's a businessman. Everybody just contributed a little. So I would say initially the team was my family, and then eventually when we started setting up the groundwork in the village, it also helped again, because we started it in a village which was near my hometown in Silvassa. So I come from Dadra Nagar Haveli, which is a union territory. So we started it. The people around there were totally new to this concept. They were
Right.
unemployed. We wanted to employ. That's why we went there in a tribal village, far away from the city. So it's 150 kilometers from Bombay, 300 kilometers from Pune. But we purposely went to such a remote village because that's where the problem is. And when we showed them that this is what we want to do, the first people who came in front were all the youngsters, because they were so excited about the concept that this is something we want to get into. What is weaving? They were not weavers by heritage, by tradition. We were totally new tribals who wanted to learn something new. So it was interesting for them. They joined us. A couple of people from the village joined us, and then slowly the team started expanding. It was difficult to get the admin team to work with us, because not many people are happy to work at lower wages. So again, their passion is what was needed. So all our employees who are even today our admin team, our entire admin team is a bunch of passionate people for whom money is secondary and work satisfaction is first, because we
Yes.
can't pay the kind of wages which corporates can pay.
Yes.
But this is what drives us. We
That's
change our
lovely.
lifestyle.
That's lovely. How did you manage the finances in the beginning? Was any initial investment required?
Not at all actually. So we were bootstrapped. We put in a little bit of our own investment and we drove it organically. So we didn't take anything back. That was our investment.
Right.
Uh, and but then of course things like the our weaving unit is in my family farmhouse, so it's an investment. Whatever we had to forego is an investment. So those things are definitely of investment was needed, but we grew slowly. We didn't go all at once. We
Mhm.
started by investing in one loom and then one machine and just four people to start with, and slowly we grew.
Right. You have two units, one in Pune and other in a tribal village, as you said. Tell us more about your units.
Sure, sure. So the one in the village, that's my favorite one. That's where all the tribals are.
That's the video we saw.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes. So part of the video was in the village and part is in Pune.
Right.
That's where the handlooms are. And handlooms don't require electricity. So our unit is in a very far-flung village where there's no electricity. Like the electricity is there, but it's obviously fluctuating as in most villages. And it's in a wadi, as in it's in a nice mango orchard. It's not a typical village. It's a very small, remote village. And the people there are all the tribals who live close by around our wadi, and they come there work. That's where the fabric is created. And there we have 12 people who are full-time employed with us, 10 women and 2 men, and then there are some more women who come on a need basis when we need certain specific works to do. So that's our weaving unit, which is in Silvassa. Not in Silvassa, but it's about 20 kilometers from the Silvassa town. The other unit is in Pune, and that's where we design and make all these beautiful products. So like the cushion covers behind me or the bag that I have in my hand. So this is where it is all made into a product.
Right.
And that,
And do you have a showroom or a shop as well in Pune?
we wouldn't call it a shop, but it's in our own workshop. One room is dedicated keeping the products, and not many people visit the store nowadays. People have started visiting actually, but we don't get too many people to come into the shop and buy things. But maybe in a year or so we'll have to start a showroom. But the
Right.
investment is quite huge, in a
Yeah.
showroom. So that's why
Right.
we're going slow.
And it's mostly online, right? Your business.
Now
Whoever is
it's
buying.
Yep.
Right. Right.
So until last year, we did a lot of our sales through exhibitions and
Mhm.
events. But this year, we started it online. We had, even before the pandemic, we had started selling online.
Right. Um, there's a general assumption that the more sustainable or ethical a product is, the higher the price tag will be. How have you kept your prices so accessible and fair?
That's very true. And with us also, that is also very important. Just a sustainable product in the sense that it's recycled. The fact is also there's a lot of labor that is used because everything is handmade. So you have to gather like 60 to 70 of these wrappers. Like this is a Haldiram wrapper, for example. Only then a bag like this can be made. So you manually cut each of these wrappers, you manually weave them on the charkha and hand loom, and then a bag like this is made. So about 2 to 3 man days go in making a bag like that. So we have to pay our very good wages to our tribals. We don't do any salary cuts or wage cuts in that. So where we take cuts in our own salaries. Like I said, our admin team is the one that is the most generous and the most passionate of all. So that's where we do have a little bit of a cut to keep the prices low. But if urge which I have towards the market, that when people are buying anything, if they think about the story of how it's made and then buy it, people start appreciating. They can buy less, maybe instead of buying a use and throw bag which will go bad in a year, you buy a bag which can last you 4 years, 5 years, and even if it's a little more expensive. So change in buyers mentality is important, so that people like us can actually get a better rate for our product. Right now, to be competitive, we've kept it low, but definitely, if given a choice, I would love to sell our bags, at least 1.5 times what we are selling it right now.
Right. That brings to whatever you said about the durability of the products and how long it lasts.
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought of any sustainable way of disposing the Recharka products once they use to their maximum capacity?
Yes, so we have a repair policy, free policy of repair. So all our products can be brought back to our, can be shipped from wherever they are, can be shipped to our Pune office, and we can repair it and send it back to you. If that also doesn't help, if the repair, it's not repairable, then we dismantle it on our end and send it for the right disposal facilities, or we can even upcycle it further, because usually nothing happens to the. So if you see this wrap, if this pouch, there are all these tied packets and all inside it. So even if it gets torn eventually, now this is more than about 2 years old, so even if it gets torn, the threads will get torn, but the plastic is not going to tear, because that is the problem, that nothing happens to the plastic. So we can reuse that plastic and we can upcycle it further.
Right. So, what are the future plans of Recharka? Do you plan to expand your product base?
Yes, product range we are already expanding. We are also trying to expand our production unit, but it has to go hand in hand with the market. As the market will grow, we will grow our production. So that's where we need more help in, to grow the market first, and then the production will automatically follow.
All right. Can anyone volunteer for a Recharka? If yes, can you tell us more about it? Minimum duration of volunteering, if any. Are you looking at specific skill set when it comes to a volunteer?
Totally. We require help in every aspect of business. The most important is whatever it takes to increase our market and expand our market. So helping us sell our products, even if it is not a full-time activity, people are interested in spreading our, talking about our products, we can have them, we can provide them with our details and video and everything like that, and they can talk about it. So that's how most of our sales happens. It's word of mouth.
Yeah.
Somebody buys a bag, they show it to their friends, and then 10 orders come from their friends. So that's the easiest way of volunteering, where you don't have to spend specific amount of time with us. Okay. The second way of volunteering would be also for waste collection. So you can collect waste for us, but again, sending it all the way from Assam is going to be a lot of carbon footprint. So, once in a while maybe, or wherever people are, if they can sort their waste as per the video that you showed earlier, people can send us their waste. We purposely work with waste pickers, because that is also another part of livelihood that we are trying to generate. So that's why we don't have our own waste collection system, as we want waste pickers also to get their livelihoods. Other than that, a lot of volunteering will be of help in our actual work, where people can help us in our social media activity, in designing. So if somebody can come and be a part of our team for a month and help us with designs for products as well as for graphics, that could help. To set up processes, because you all have such a very well set company which has processes for everything. So helping us set up our processes, data collection, data analysis, because you all are great at doing that as well. Market data and researching on market data, that will definitely help. So I think these are some of the ways people can volunteer with us.
Right. My last question before I kind of open up the floor for the audience. I have a son who is 9 years old. Say he's 18 and he comes to me and say, I want to do what Amita Deshpande is doing at Recharkha. What would be your advice to him vis-a-vis the path he should take? What are the rewards, challenges, and disappointments in this journey that he should know of, which will help him arrive at an informed decision?
Very true. That's a great question, right? It's not only, for a younger child like him, but for everybody. If they want to take such a decision, the first and foremost thing that I suggest entrepreneurs is that do something which you're really passionate about. Because if you are, especially if you're a social entrepreneur, passion is extremely, extremely important. If you're just doing it for the market, that इसमें बहुत अच्छा career हो सकता है, don't social entrepreneurship at least. So you have to have a passion for what you're working on. Only then you can actually make a good business out of it, or a really ethical business out of it. There was a gentleman who had recently approached us on Instagram, and he said that I run a fashion brand and I want you to, give me some fabric, but I want very same colors. Like I want blue ke itna meter, red ka itna meter. So we told him कि हम ऐसा नहीं कर सकते. We can't choose the waist that comes to us. And you won't believe what he said. He said that, can't you go to the market and buy new plastic and then make it for me? So if I was, so if I was not a social entrepreneur, if I was just a regular businessman or a businesswoman, I would have actually taken up that. He's going to pay me, right? Why can't I go to the market, bring some new brands? Our workload will come down drastically. But that's not the point. So you should actually, if you want to be a social entrepreneur, you have to follow what your heart says, and you have to do it for a particular cause, not just because the market needs it. You can create a market. We created a market. This market wasn't there before. So passion. The second is being very persistent, because there are going to be failures. This pandemic was a huge example and we still succeeded, right? We came out and there were so many businesses which closed down because people then just gave up. But because we were consistent, we were persistent, we followed it through. And there are going to be multiple failures. But it's important that you keep your own passion, and the lamp, the oil in the lamp should be. You should have a very good team with you, who supports you in whatever decisions you're making. So that is important. So try to build a support structure around you. So I think these three things are extremely important: passion, perseverance, support structure. Of course, with this you can then create the market or go to the existing market and establish yourself.
All right. And okay, all right. And then let me now just throw open the floor to the audience for the questions. I'm sure there are a lot of questions to ask you. We already have three. Anjana Josna is saying, lovely initiative. Thank you for sharing Recharkha with us. What has been your biggest challenge with this initiative and how did you overcome it?
So like I said, the biggest challenge has been getting the right kind of team together. It's very, very difficult because not everybody wants to let go their comforts and conveniences into serving such a cause, because our cause definitely takes a lot of patience, sometimes a lot of dirty work that you have to do. Even if you're not interested, and you have to go to the waste pickers. Initially we've done all that, we've got all that waste in our car also. So you have to be, these are the challenges, and that's our biggest challenge, where we initially had a hard time getting the right kind of team together. But when they started coming in, now that we, like I said, getting the right passionate people was the challenge. And once we started getting those people, it was very easy for us to come to this stage where we are right now. So we overcame it by telling our own story, where I tell my story, and people who relate to me will join me.
Right. Chandrasekhar is asking, are you on which online shopping platforms are you available? Your products?
Yeah, we have our own website. I'll just type it here. Where can I write it? I don't know if I
You can just
it's recharkha.org. It's RECHARKHA.org.
So there you can shop online and it'll get tell you about. Okay. All
yes,
right.
please, and give us feedback.
All right. Rashmi Gupta is asking an interesting question. Thank you, Amita, for the wonderful effort. Curious to know when there is leftover plastic which cannot be used to make any product. What do you do with those leftovers?
In Recharkha, what do we do with those products?
Yeah.
In Recharkha, if there is any plastic which does not get recycled with our method, we send it for regular recycling.
Right.
Or we send it, if there's no other way left, then we send it for pyrolysis. Otherwise, nothing is thrown up.
Okay. Chandrasekhar is asking, any plans for franchises?
Franchises for market, yes. For production, not yet. We don't want to expand our production because right now our own tribals need a lot of employment. And like I said, market has to grow first and then I'll expand our production.
Jayanta Fangcho is asking, dear ma'am, in future, do you think waste clothes to manufacture different day-to-day reusable products? I have seen a YouTuber showing making rope for a charpai and also bed sheet in a Haryana village. So anything like that?
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. Waste clothes can be used. Even we can use them. Right now, we do use some waste fabric like cotton and all that kind of fabric. Belts for our bags, like not these, but this kind of belts. We can use it for different things. But we decided that we'll go for the bad boy first. And the biggest problem today is plastic. So we decided to go for plastic waste. But yes, eventually our dream is that all the plastic waste should just get over, should just vanish. And most importantly, like I have said in that video also, that all of us should start moving towards a better lifestyle in which we are not just recycling plastic, but much before recycling, we should think about refuse, reduce, reuse. Once we do that, then only recycling and upcycling can help solve the problem. Because if the statistics say that every minute 1 million plastic bags are being used worldwide. So with this kind of population, with this kind of use, using, reducing and reusing is not brought into our lifestyle, it's impossible to recycle. Even if there are more and more recycling units set up, it's never going to solve the problem.
Right. Vipin Nayal is asking an interesting question. You are such an environmental warrior, and great to see that you are using yourself at home. How do you find any health related issues because people are working with this plastic waste very frequently? They're constantly working with plastic waste. Is there any health issues involved with this, and if yes, how do you kind of mitigate that?
See, this plastic is what you and I use for our food packaging. Okay. Right. So if we are talking about a health issue, then actually we should not even use it, which is what I totally believe. That, you bring food from restaurants packed in plastic bag.
Have we lost Amita? Saurabh?
Yeah, Kuntal, I guess she's frozen, I guess.
Yes, I
guess her net is gone.
Yep.
Let's
maybe just wait for.
Let's wait for 5 minutes.
Yeah, let's wait for 2 more. Yeah.
But this is an interesting session actually.
Yeah, I'm
back.
Yeah, you're back. You froze.
what happened?
No, I mean, this is just a fluctuation of the internet, yeah. Which is
Yeah.
why we have so many backups, by conducting these webinars. Yeah.
I have
I
my
mean,
backup also.
I mean,
You can answer most of the questions, I'm
yeah,
sure.
Vipin is asking that, people associated with Recharge is continuously working with plastic waste.
Yeah. I heard the
Yeah.
question, right? I heard the question. And I was just saying that this is the plastic which you and I use at home. So the plastic itself should not be used in the first place. Plastic is, if see, in its inert way, it's not very harmful. But if it's heated or if
Mhm.
it is melted, then it becomes harmful. The problem is with plastic is that nothing happens to it.
It's terrible thing when the shopkeepers burn it, I mean,
That is harmful.
yeah.
Burning plastic is harmful when you use plastic for bringing in hot food from restaurants or from wherever. That is more harmful. Our people are basically what they're doing are manually cutting all this plastic waste and they are weaving it. So we are not melting or burning it. If we would have done that, then it was definitely harmful. So the actual recycling work, which many people do, that is a little harmful because it releases carcinogens. And hence, the process that we purposely set up was a manual process, which is also sustainable.
Right.
So the
And
material in itself is inert. So with the process we use, nothing, no, there's no harm to the people who work.
right. So I think we have answered most of the questions. Let's wait for a minute. Okay, we have one more question. Yeah. Um, Avinash Kumar is asking, dear Amitaji, indeed a very interesting and informative presentation. Many countries have already started incorporating using recycled plastic for road construction and building material. As per you, where India stands in minimizing plastic use and recycling plastic?
Minimizing plastic has to be driven by the citizens. So the government has banned plastic n number of times, but it is people and shopkeepers. The shopkeepers blame the customer blames the shopkeeper. उस भाजी सब्जी वाले ने दिया, मैंने ले लिया, और द सब्जी वाला सेल्स कस्टमर को चाहिए था इसलिए मैंने दिया. So when this blame game will stop and the person himself will understand that I need to take my own cloth bag and go shopping, that is the only time plastic will come down. And secondly, businesses themselves should become a little more creative about their own packaging. Plastic is the cheapest form of packaging, so obviously everybody goes to packaging plastic, but then way of packaging plastic is not the right way of packaging, because you don't know where that plastic will end up then. And that's what is happening with tourism, right? People, like, there are beautiful gorgeous places where we go to, being a tourist, but those places can't handle your waste, and we end up dirtying that place and coming back. I am a trekker, and whenever I go to such places in far flung mountains and I still see Maggie packets over there, it becomes, it's disheartening. So it has to be driven by the consumer and the businesses, right? Like I earlier said, that if Starbucks decides to cut down its plastic usage, only then it is possible. So it has to be driven by the industry. And using plastic in road constructions is just a temporary solution. How many roads are you going to build? Even the final solution. Upcycling, it's just something that we are doing so that the message is what we want to give through the product. Ours is not a solution. We take 2 days to make one bag, 2 man days to make one bag. So our plastic consumption is not that huge. Road construction is not the solution. The only solution is stopping the use of disposable plastic. That's the only solution if you really want to see a better planet. And
Right.
actually, the tourism industry should drive this, because that is what your business is dependent on. If there are going to be beautiful places around, then the tourism industry will flourish. And that's what y'all are actually doing, which is, such a great initiative.
Right. And I think the cloth bag is the first step.
That's the only solution.
That's the first step. Please, next today when you go grocery shopping, please
Yeah.
take your cloth bag with you and don't take any plastic.
Very true. And you know, one more thing I just wanted to show here is that this is also plastic. Huh? If people think that this is kapda, because a lot of, I've seen in a lot of the hill stations, they've started using this. It's called a non-woven bag.
This is also
It's
plastic.
100% plastic. It's not
Right.
kapda. And if you want to test if it's plastic or not, just burn a little bit of the corner and you will understand. If it fuses, then it's plastic. If it burns and turns into ashes, it was cotton. And
Right.
even the glittery gift wrappers. So the pillow covers behind me, the chamak chamak, what you see here, the shine, it's all those glittery gift wrappers, which we think that the presents and the gifts look nice if we pack our gifts in that. But that is 100% plastic. It's not aluminium foil. And again, aluminium is not sustainable either.
Right. Anand Case is asking, do you conduct any awareness camps for people to refuse, reduce, reuse, and recycle plastic? Do you do that?
This is one right now.
Yeah, sure. Anand, this is
but
one.
yes but yes, we would love to conduct more, and that's what our NGO is all about. So we have an NGO which is called My Eco Social Planet, and through our NGO we are conducting a lot of these drives right now in Pune, but we would love to go places and conduct these drives other places or do webinars and reach out to as many people as possible. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Vipin Nal is asking any story he wants to know. Do you have a story which inspired you to start this venture?
Lots of stories. The primary time when I realized that this should not, plastic is a problem was when I was in school. When we started learning in textbooks that there is something called as non-degradable waste, then it started raising questions in my mind that if it's non-degradable, why are we using it or why are we throwing it away? Okay. And especially the carry bags, when I was like a kid, these were becoming a fashion. Everybody wanted to go to a grocery store and get a plastic bag. We had stopped using cloth bags. So I used to always wonder कि इसका अगर इसका कुछ नहीं हो सकता, अगर ये 1000 years तक अपने planet पे ही रहने वाला है, तो हम use क्यों कर रहे हैं? And I was hardly 14 years of age at that time. So that was sort of an inspiring moment, and I did a few seminars after that in school on solid waste management, did a lot of research. So it was my personal passion actually. And later on, even like I said, I'm a trekker. I love going into the mountains and in really far-flung places where there's nothing else around, and that is where I also started seeing plastic waste. It started becoming a really teething issue which I wanted to work on and get and make it a goal of my own life.
Right. We have one more question here. Candle wax. Is it bad for the environment?
Candle wax, not so much, but what they say, I don't know if this is where you're coming from, but tea mugs, which are paper actually, but they are wax coated from inside, they are harmful because that is not actually wax. Anyways, wax is a petroleum product. It's paraffin wax, right? So anyways, it's not good for consumption. So you are actually consuming it. You're drinking that, and it's going to have bad effects on your own body. And wax-coated paper cups are not degradable. They are not recyclable also. But as such, if I'm not very sure about candle wax in itself, if that is harmful, but most of it just burns away. Very little is left. So I'm not very sure about that question.
But definitely plastic, the wax coated glasses are definitely non-recyclable.
So don't go for those also. just reusable, everything reusable. You know, I always carry this with me when I'm on treks, or I have a reusable mug. I forgot to keep it here with me. So you know, these like a traveler should actually carry with them a reusable mug, which they can start using. Can I show you? There's a very interesting mug that I have. It's like a keychain. It presses down.
Right. Yes. Sure. Why not?
Yeah, one sec. I will bring it. Oh wait, it's here. I've taken it with me to the office. So it's this. Okay, it has a key holder to it, and then you can open it, and it becomes our chai cup.
Wow.
So this is one sustainable alternative. The other sustainable alternatives, which maybe a lot of tourists should know about, is sanitary pads. Because we as urban dwellers go to, say, Ladakh and create a heap of mountain of waste over there. And a lot of it is sanitary waste, which is not going to be taken care of at all, ever. So, you know, switch to sustainable alternatives like reusable cloth pads or sanitary menstrual cups. So I always say that when you are into traveling a lot, you have to take care of these things. Anyways, you have to make use of all these sustainable options. Because we just think about our own house and our house is clean. We don't know where the dustbin is going and the kachra in the dustbin is going. So we have to think holistic. So if I would really urge all of you to subscribe to our Instagram handle, because we have a very good following on Instagram, first of all. Secondly, we have a lot of interesting posts that we keep doing. We do interesting lives every weekend with different people and we talk about all these problems.
Right. It was. Thank you so much, Amita. It was wonderful having you on this webinar today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And I wish you all the best, and stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you, people. Thank you all. Those who logged in, please fill in the poll, give us your feedback so that we can get better. Have a wonderful evening, and see you on Monday.
Thank you.
All of you. All right. Bye-bye, everyone. Take care.